Another deadline looms for Guyana to become compliant with the requirements of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, CFATF. On Friday, Guyana was listed as #1 on CFATF's blacklist. Good evening. Welcome to the conversation, Mr. President. How did Guyana find itself in this position?
Well, as you know, the nature of this legislation is to try to bring all the countries in the region to have a similar type of legislation to prevent creating any loopholes under which money laundering or financing of terrorism activities could be done, because you know there's generally a link between money laundering, drug trafficking, and financing of terrorism. So this is to try to create a common legislation throughout the region and even further afield, because we have CFATF for the Caribbean and the FATF for the other jurisdictions, where there will be no loopholes to allow these type of illegal activities from criminals or others from taking advantage of any loopholes in the different areas. Now, this bill was taken to the Parliament last year, and since March last year, I think, and the opposition had claimed at that time that they wanted to make some amendments to the bill, to the legislation. Although, as I've said, generally, it's a bill to try to make our legislation correspond to the others in the region. And for 6 months, this bill was in the Parliament, more than 6 months, and they have not made one single recommendation to modify this. And as a result of that, when the CFATF met, we still had not passed the legislation. And that is where the difficulty began. And now we are in the process of being blacklisted for that. Because what had actually happened, the opposition in the first time the bill went to the Parliament, and they wanted a select committee. When the select committee was created, they did everything to slow down the work of the committee. They were not attending the meetings. My information is when one of them would have been absent, then they were calling to call off the whole meeting, that this meeting could not go on. They did not want to meet on a regular basis. And the records are there to show how they were filibustering, really. And then when the bill actually went into the Parliament, they voted against it. And that was the first instance. Subsequently, on both sides of the aisle, we had an agreement to take the bill back to the National Assembly. And we were very optimistic that this bill would be going back to that the opposition had agreed to take the bill back to the National Assembly. And then we also heard Mr. Granger making a statement that he was optimistic that this bill would pass, which sent a signal that the opposition would support this bill. Again, we went to a select committee, and immediately we began to see some of the same old tactics being used not to want to hold meetings frequently, refusal of having the press sitting at these meetings, refusing to have the stakeholders like labor, private sector, also being an observer at these meetings. So very, very clearly, that immediately started to raise some concerns about what were the real intentions of the opposition in this regard. And then I understand that they were calling to go back all the people who were interviewed before, to bring them back again, all of which seems to have been designed to waste time and to not to want to pass this bill. And then subsequently, we heard that the APNU making the statement that they will not support the bill, which means that if that doesn't happen because of the joint opposition one-seat majority in the parliament, it means that then our country could be blacklisted.
The opposition has tied their support to this particular bill to a number of things, some of which your party has dealt with and the government has dealt with. And he has most recently said that he will support the bill if you were to sign the bills to assent to the bills that are before you. How do you respond?
Well, I heard him, but there's no bills before me. There's no bills before me to be signed. The bills that I have refused to sign, that I didn't assent to, I had sent them back to the National Assembly with explanation of why I was not assenting to these bills, and that is in the National Assembly. Now, there is a constitutional procedure. There is laid out constitutional procedures how these bills can come back to me from the National Assembly. So I did not assent to these bills. I sent it back to the National Assembly, and so I have no bills in front of me to sign. That is clear. If those bills come back to me after going through the procedures that the Constitution has laid down for them to go through, then I will sign them.
Now, on the issue of signing those bills, what do you think then, if this is the position, what do you think is the motive of the opposition?
Well, let me say this. Who will benefit? Who will benefit if these bills aren't going to be signed? Not the Guyanese people. In the first instance, it will increase the cost of doing business in our country, because the regular way banks do business with each other, the banks abroad now will increase the cost and the time in doing business with our country. Secondly, it will give our country a very, very bad name, and it will be extremely difficult, or it will send us a message to investors that can negatively impact investments coming to our society. And that, of course, that doesn't mean only the banks and the insurance company and business will suffer, but jobs, investments, of course, brings jobs. So jobs will be delayed in the system of coming to Guyana, and it will also have a negative effect from people who have got relatives abroad who send money to them, money transferred. It will become much, much more expensive and much, much more difficult. Their relatives will have to spend much more time in filling out volumes of papers to get things here. And all of these people will be hurt by these issues. Moreover, who, as I said, I asked just who will benefit? We know that Guyana's economy will not benefit, and the vast majority of people in our country will not benefit. The workers will not benefit. The farmers will not benefit. Who therefore will benefit? It is those who are engaged in illegal activities, the money launderers, those who are engaged in financing of terrorism activities, in illegal activities. Those are the people that are going to benefit from the action that the opposition is actually taking. And of course, I know that there has been talk around about the links with the opposition and some of these elements. I never wanted I preferred to have given the opposition the benefits of the doubt, but today with what we're seeing happening with this doing so much harm to our country. And in a way, this will be practically be in a kind of a defense of criminals, of terrorists. So one wonders really what is the real motive of the opposition in this regard. Because I think they have intelligent people on their side, and they must know what are the consequences of not passing these bills. So that is my big concern at this point in time, that we would be blacklisted, our country would unnecessarily have a bad name, and we can have all kinds of other implications, as I've said.
Now, the new deadline for Guyana to become compliant comes up mid-February. What do you wish to say to the opposition, but more so to the Guyanese people, regarding Guyana becoming compliant?
Well, I still hope, I'm an eternal optimist, and I still hope that they will change their mind, because there is no legitimate force in this country that opposes this bill. I know for a fact that Labour, the largest part of Labour, the FITUG, have come out to support the passing of this bill because they recognize that it can have a damaging effect on the welfare of the workers. The farmers through the RPA have also come out and called for the passing of this bill because they also are aware of the effects it will have on their constituency. The private sector, the business sector, met with the opposition. They had meetings with the opposition and expressed their views to the opposition about the need to pass this bill in the interest of not only their business, but in the interest of continuing the general upward trend that our economy is showing. So all of the legitimate forces in our country have made it very, very clear that it is extremely important that this bill pass the parliament so that we can avoid the negative consequences of what blacklisting will entail. So I hope that the opposition will go on the side of those legitimate forces in Guyana, and not on the side, and not objectively. By not passing this bill, they will be objectively actually be helping those who have sinister and even criminal motives, not only local criminal motives, but even probably section of the international criminal community can benefit from their actions if this is not passed. So I still hope that they will recognize that they have absolutely nothing to gain by not passing this bill. I don't know what they have to gain. At least I don't see anything they have to gain politically. I don't know what interest they represent to want not to pass this bill.
So at the moment, before we let you go, Mr. President, at the moment where the bill stands, your government has a bill ready to go to Parliament.
Yes, it is been ready for a long time. As I've said, it is not a complicated bill because it's a bill that is designed to bring the legislations into par with the rest of the region. And it's a bill, I suppose, that will come back from time to time because as you get experience, they might want to make amendments to the bill, and all the jurisdictions will be expected to do so. So the bill has been with the Parliament since last year. This is the second round. It is there. It has been prepared already. So I still hope that they will find the courage to realize that this is something that will affect all Guyanese, whether they support the government, the PPP civic government, or whether they support the opposition. Everyone will suffer if this bill is not passed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You were watching The Conversation. My name is Vanita Hubert.